In tip number 8, I want to talk to you about how to coach the pre and post snap quarterback pass reads. So a lot of times you're giving your quarterback the sequence that you want him to look at receivers. For example, go 1 to 2 to 3. And yet we're not giving him specific instructions on what takes him off of throwing it to number 1 to get to number 2. So I want to explain to you the system that I used to be able to give him some pre-snap reads, some reads in his drop back, and then the reads when he gets to the top of his drop. Previously, I've done videos on how I believe, from understanding what Coach Bill Walsh taught, that the quarterback and receiver footwork need to be synced. And this allows the quarterback to be able to throw on time and in rhythm with his release. And that's important because the footwork of the receiver and the footwork of the defensive back are really in a conflict as to who can do the best footwork. So if our receiver can do the best footwork and get out of his route break before the defensive back can get out of his back pedal and break on the route, then we know that if the ball's thrown, when that happens, we can complete a lot of passes on time and in rhythm. And it's going to create a conflict for the defenders in either changing their techniques, playing closer, or doing something different to stop our on time and in rhythm pass game. So what we have here is, I have a play, and this is called my 4 route, and the X is doing a post, the A is doing a slant, the B is doing an arrow out, the Z has what I call an in route. You would look at that and say it's a curl, but basically on my in route, it's a 7-step hitch, or it's a 7-step and he's turning straight around. And I'll explain why that is as I go through. And the W has an inside release takeoff or an inside release, and then he's going to climb and stack the corner. Okay? This is a popular formation because it's 2x2 with a back in the backfield. And we know that the defense is going to play 3/2 on both sides. So let's start over on the left with the X and the A and talk about how I would take this quarterback through what his pre-snap, his drop back, and his top of the drop reads are. So we always tell them to work short to deep. So in this case, he's going to work the slant to the post. All right? So what I tell him first is, on any pass route, when you're given who the first read is, identify the defender on the first read. Okay, so he comes up to the line of scrimmage, he sees what he sees, he starts to give whatever signals he needs to give to his offensive players, and then he's going to ID the first defender who can defend the route, and that in this case would be the will. So once he's identified him, okay, he's going to put in his mind, and I've taught him what the possible techniques are for him to defend that route, or what he can do. So we know that if the will is going to play a zone, he's going to spot drop to a certain area. He's going to be given a depth and a distance that he needs to be from this slot receiver. Because where he is now, he has a run responsibility, which is that B gap, but he also has a pass responsibility if he's playing zone. So he would zone drop. So once our quarterback identifies that defender who can cover the first route, he's going to put in his mind the 2 possible things. The first thing is he could zone drop. The second thing is he could go and wall that receiver. So the ball's snapped and he basically doesn't move. He sits there to reroute or wall that receiver. So he's going to do one of those 2 things. That's all he's going to do. He's not going to do anything else. If he happens to blitz, then that's an even easier read for the quarterback because he knows he's going to hit his back foot and the ball's coming out right now. So whether he zone drops, whether he reroutes, or whether he blitzes, our quarterback understands the techniques of that linebacker. Okay? So on the way back, that's when he's going to read his pass defender's technique. In this particular scenario, he's going to do a 3-step no-hitch drop. So he IDs the will. He puts in his mind whether it's what a zone drop looks like, what a reroute man technique looks like, or whether it's a reroute zone technique. In either case, he knows that he's going to identify the will. On the way back, he sees which one he's chosen to do. And then when he gets to the top of his drop, he's going to throw that receiver open. So let's go through this scenario of the will zone drops. He knows right now he's going to go 1, 2, 3. He's going to throw that right to the A because the will has vacated that area. Okay? So let's say he decides to reroute him before he goes to his zone, or he reroutes him to be able to play him man-to-man. In that particular case, the quarterback's going to make a decision as to, okay, he's rerouting him, I'm hitting my third step, and I really don't like that particular matchup. Maybe the will's in a good place. And so he decides to go to the next receiver, and you'll see that in this particular case, and in most of the cases of the routes that I design, he's got a nice little throwing lane where if he doesn't like the will, he can go to the route behind it, which is a post. Okay? So he hits on the way back, on his drop back, he reads the pass technique, and then when he hits the top of his drop or he hits his last step, he's then going to decide, is he going to throw this slant open or is he going to go to the next route behind it? So that's the sequence that he would decide in this slant post combination of how he reads the pre-snap, identify the defender. On your drop back, read the defender's pass technique, and then at the top of your drop, when you hit your last step, throw the receiver open. So now let's apply the same three-step process for the quarterback on the pass route reads to this, the right side with the B, the Z, and the W. So what we have is an arrow out by the B, an in route, which I explained basically is he's going to come straight back down the stem. I don't like to run a curl because what I've found is all the receivers curl a different amount. And I never want to leave the quarterback not knowing exactly where the receiver is going to turn in case he got blitzed and he had to throw that. So in my teaching, whether it's a hitch, in this case I call it an in because I want him to hit his 7th step and basically turn in like he is running a hitch. I want the quarterback to know that if he gets blitzed, he can throw it at the receiver's back, and the receiver will be turning around as the ball's in the air. Okay, so that's why I call it an in. And then on this W route, this is an inside takeoff. So I want him to reach always inside and then climb and stack the corner when he's running that route. So that's our rules for these routes. So I told you that I still give the quarterback a 1 to 2 to 3, but I can tag that differently. So in this case, we'll say that the B is 1, the Z is 2, and the W is 3. But I could switch that and say, hey, let's make the in route 1, the arrow 2, and the takeoff 3. So I can tag that. I can call the play and tag that and tell them who I want to read first. All right? But let's go back and change it so that the arrow is first. So the first thing the quarterback's going to do is pre-snap when he's at the line of scrimmage after he's finished calling his stuff at the line of scrimmage for the offense. He's going to say, okay, who's the first defender that could cover the arrow out? And it's going to be this corner because that's where he's going to end out. We're going to throw this ball outside the hash between the hash and the numbers, and that's where the corner's responsibility is. He's responsible for the out. when you have three receivers, it's difficult for the corner to read from 1 to 2 and get to 3. It takes a little while. But we know his techniques that I've taught the quarterback is that when he gets an inside release, he's going to carry this receiver to a certain distance. Basically, it's usually to the comeback distance. So if it's high school, it's 12 yards. If it's college or pro, it's 15 to 18 because that's usually where the comebacks run. So let's say that he's going to carry him to 10 to 12 yards, and he's going to let him go, which means we've got a lot of space for him to throw there. So the quarterback's going to drop back and watch the depth of the cornerback. And if he's carrying it to 12 yards, he's going to hit his back foot and throw it. Okay? So the second thing is to read his defender's technique. If he simply reroutes him and lets him go so that he stays at a depth of, say, 5 to 6 yards, then he's probably going to come off of that because he knows that's not enough area for him to throw that route into the B, because the corner is outside and he would break down there. Okay? So what they've told the corner in this particular case is you just reroute and let the strong safety come over the top. You're not going to carry him while you're doing that. Okay? So he would come off of that and he would go to his second read. Okay? For that. So once he sees the second read, now we know that these two guys are tied together. So he's really got to understand the corner and what he's doing, and he's got to understand what the Sam is doing. But we know they're tied together, so that's going to give him a clue. If this corner is carrying him to a depth of 12 yards to the comeback, then we're pretty certain that this Sam is going to spot drop also. So basically we have two zone techniques by the corner and the Sam. So he's going to be free to throw that right to the B on his arrow out. If we get a reroute by the corner, then we know that that's tied together with pretty much what the Sam's going to do, and we know that the Sam would probably widen a little bit to cover this first part, this first throwing window for that arrow out. So the quarterback sees the corner sitting, so he knows the Sam's probably playing at the same level and is going to carry the B out a little bit, and that would tell him that he can turn, take his eyes off the arrow, and throw the in route right past the Sam who's gone past that in route. Okay? So we know also, because the corner's playing here as a reroute, that the Sam would be responsible for rerouting the Z, which makes, because of our route design, which makes that even more certain for the quarterback on his drop back when he's reading the corner and the corner's rerouting. He's pretty confident that the Sam's going to reroute also, because those two guys are tied together. And then that would allow him to throw behind the Sam right into that in route. So that's the process that I take the quarterback through with regard to pre-snap, identify a defender on his first read, know what your drop is. In this case, it's a 3-step no hitch. On your drop back, read the defender's pass technique. And to do that, you have to explain to the quarterback what that defender can possibly do in terms of his zone or his man coverage. And then when you get to the top of your drop, which is your last step, you're going to throw a receiver open, whichever way you have to throw it, back shoulder, front shoulder. If he's wide open, you just throw right on his chest or whatever route he's running. Okay? I've had a lot of success teaching this to high school quarterbacks, teaching this to college quarterbacks, teaching this to 10 and 12-year-olds, and they've understood it and they've been very successful in terms of completing passes and coming to the line of scrimmage and having a plan to go through to know exactly who to throw to. If you like more information, coaching tips and coaching football information, you can go to my website at www.billrennerfootball.com. Go over to coaching books and you'll see the topics that I've written on. You can also go to position drill videos, and I have a whole series of all the drills that I use to teach quarterbacks, to teach other position groups, and I've telestrated and provided you video examples of that. So if this is interest of you and you want to explore the coaching part even more, then please feel free to go to my website.